This is episode 348 of the Super League Pod, and this week we get into it all. Politics, fashion, literature, pop music, and rugby league. Skip the start if you like Nadine Dorries, skip the end if you don't like books and music, but in between we've got lots of rugby league with fan reviews and developing news to cover in our Super League recaps. We discuss people it's hard to hate, people we no longer accept exist, and animal excrement of the funniest order. Plus, we look ahead to Magic Weekend with wild guesses about what could happen. Strap in, it's SLP time. Hello listeners, welcome along. It's episode 348 of the Super League Pod, and this week it is myself, Mark, and I'm joined again by Scoot. Sarah, welcome back. Magic Weekend preview, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like I'm normally on the other side of Magic, so doing a bit of previewing this year.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, before we do that, and lots aside from that as well, it's been one of the busiest Tuesday between getting home from work to starting the show of news stories to fit in. Do you want to tell everyone about our sponsor before we get into any of that?
Yeah, so Super League Pod is supported by Rob's Megastore, which stocks a wide range of toys, stationery, arts, craft ideas, pet accessories, books, and of course Rugby League birthday cards. Search for Rob's Megastore on eBay or find the link in our episode blog post on superleaguepod.com. SLP listeners can use the code SLP10, which is SLP10 at checkout to get 10% off any orders over £5. Or if you enter SLP discount, you can give your 10% towards funding the SLP running costs instead.
Good stuff. Thanks, Rob's Megastore, for their continued support. Make sure you support them as well. So what have we got coming up on the show this week? Well, we've got a few bits of feedback and stuff like that, and we're going to drop in a couple of sad stories about some losses that we've got from our game, from some players from our past, and we'll talk about that a little bit in the opening as well. Round 17, we've got match reviews on all the games, one way or another, that we will talk about, and loads of news. Like I say, keep dropping in. As I was eating my tea, I was like, shit, I need to put that in the rundown to make sure we mention that. We'll whiz through the other results when we get to that. I think Super League will dominate again, as it normally tends to do, but we've got all the stuff from the Women's, the Championship, League One, etc. that we will bring you up to speed on as well. A good few fan reviews on, the outside the norm games, which we always like to share with people, so we've got those as well. Then we will make our Magic Weekend predictions as we look ahead to the party weekend in Newcastle, before we'll finish with our typical quiz and then leave you all for Magic Weekend. I assume some people will be listening to this as they're on the way to Magic Weekend, so I hope the excitement will build through the show as we go through what's been happening in the last week in Rugby League. And I think we should start with some listener feedback about, I guess, one of the biggest press days for Rugby League, inadvertently. We can thank the fuck up Tories for actually getting plenty of press about the Rugby League World Cup. Alan Walker got in touch about Nadine Dorries mixing up rugby codes in a speech at the Rugby League World Cup event that she was at in St Helens this week. So Alan said, "Good to see the Tories slag off league at our league event. Anyone who thinks it's an accident to big up Wilkinson is probably the idiot who votes for the cunts. Worst COVID deaths, but the, in quote marks, big calls right. Got the big calls right. There was a speech about league. Maybe they could have talked about Sinfield or Borough or Roby, etc. And some Nigel said, fuck the plebs. Let's talk about Johnny and Bloody Marys. Rimmer couldn't see out cause his nose is so far up the Tory arse." Yeah, I mean, fuck with that is Nadine Dorries. It's probably not the stupidest thing she's said this week, as she is 100% still in support of Prime Minister Boris Johnson at the time of recording this episode, as everyone else, all the other rats depart the sinking ship. But yeah, it's not excusable, is it really, that she doesn't fact check her own speeches when she's at a rugby league event?
Well, that's what I was saying I think to Peter and the boys, an off-the-cuff thing you can accept someone making a mistake for, but, surely either you've written the speech or somebody's written it for you, and this should be checked.
Yeah, and it's just symptomatic of... I think it's more symptomatic of they don't really give a shit about what they say, because they think they can get away with anything at the moment. Such is the state of our politics right now, but rather than any kind of determined attempt to belittle rugby league, and actually if it was that, it's maybe had a bit of a turn around the other way, because like I say, a lot of press came off the back of it. One thing it's done is it's completely overshadowed what the event was about, which is the £26.8 million worth of benefits that have been distributed to underprivileged communities left behind by this Tory government, and previous centre-right Labour governments as well in the last 25 to 30 years. So, the fact that this World Cup is having a real positive impact on some of the worst affected communities due to bankers wanting all the fucking money, or, people wasting taxpayer money by paying people who can't fulfil contracts just because they might fucking give them a backhander or be best mates with someone they've shagged or something. Those people who've been left behind by that sort of behaviour have actually seen regeneration in their communities. All of the rugby league community clubs that have had a great deal of funding to regenerate their clubhouses, their playing fields, their community outreach, all of those things. That's fantastic, and this has sadly overshadowed that, but hopefully it'll have got more people aware of what's been happening in rugby league and what's to come at the end of the year, and we do hopefully have a different government watching these games and celebrating what should be a fantastic World Cup event.
Yeah, I think actually in one way it's probably it has actually generated quite a bit of talk, at least about rugby league, if not the specifics.
Yes, and giving people a lot of chances to make jokes at Nadine Dorries' expense, which isn't, to be honest, it's a low-hanging fruit exercise, but but yeah, you're right, it has generated a lot of publicity. Hopefully we can back that up with ticket sales.
Yeah.
And when I say a different government, by the way, I'm not particularly affiliated with any of the main political parties that have been in power. I'm just saying this bunch of cunts, like Alan Walker says, have lied to us for too long. But we'll move on from politics. Someone unnamed contributor got in touch, Sarah, suggesting a talking point for us on this week's show. And what I would say to this person is put your name on, because it's a good point to raise, and also give us a chance to shout you out, but get in touch. This unnamed contributor said, I saw a tweet saying about opposition players impossible to hate. My three would be Farrell, Lomax and McGilvery, all class players who always play to a high standard and just seem to be genuinely nice and humble people. You did an interview with McGilvery, didn't you, a couple of years ago, and you thought he was a really nice guy. And I did an interview with Liam Farrell, but everyone knows how much I love Liam Farrell already. But who would your opposition players be that you find impossible to hate?
One that springs to mind that I really, really, really should hate, Sean Kenny Dowell. Again, lovely guy. He came and spoke at the Hull Referee Society, and just, I could have sat and listened to him talk for several hours. He was just really down to earth, very, very knowledgeable. And just a really nice bloke. So he'd definitely be on there for me. McGilvery and Mike Cooper was the other person that I interviewed, who again was such a nice bloke.
Yeah, those interviews are still available. If you look back through our feed, they'll be somewhere in the olden parts, but they're from, I think, 2 or 3 years ago now. But you'll find them somewhere in our feed. But yeah, I remember you really thought Mike Cooper was a super nice guy.
Yeah. It's one of those that actually I need to go away and think more about, because there are some that even though you've never heard them speak or anything, you just, from how they carry themselves and everything, you get that sense from some players, don't you?
Yeah, and I think there are a few guys you look at around the league, and these words like humble and genuine and that sort of stuff. I think a lot of people would look at people like Liam Farrell. You think that's a player who puts in absolutely everything he's got, but doesn't. He's not a dirty player, even though he might get some things wrong. He's not a cheater. He's not, and he seems to genuinely care and try hard. I'd say James Roby would be one of the opposition players on my list. Even though I think he messes around loads at play of the ball and gets away with it, he does seem like a genuine guy. The amount of effort he puts in, even though skill and ability wise is up there with any player that's ever played in Super League, professionalism, effort, and commitment wise, he's also up there. You don't look at him and think, yeah, he's amazing, but also a bit of a dick, like you do with, say, maybe a Connor or a Wellesby at the moment, or that sort of thing. It doesn't have that, but is he a top bloke? Would I have got on with him? Some of these players, you think they're class players, but they definitely would have bullied me at school.
Yeah, or even, I'll tell you who else actually I've spoken to, and he is a brilliant guy, and that's Joe Westerman. The Hull FC quiz before the pandemic, when he was still playing for us, he was the player on our table, and he was, again, such a down-to-earth guy, happy to talk about anything. Mistakes he's made, what he thinks about the game's future, everything. And again, I think you actually look at what he's doing at Cass. He's got his head down and he's getting on with it.
Yeah, I would say most rugby league people are genuinely nice people. So I find a lot of people impossible to hate in our sport, if I'm honest. But
you take them off the rugby pitch, and I think, 99% of them are good guys.
Yeah. On the pitch, I think some of the ones that I really struggle to hate, no matter how they behave, do actually happen to be St Helens players, because you've got so much respect for a team that performs so highly. Similarly, Leeds players, it was impossible to hate Burrow in particular. Maguire maybe more. Sometimes he'd be a bit more annoying, but Ryan Hall, I find it difficult to hate Ryan Hall, even when he was at Leeds or since. Most rugby league players. Neil Ormston got in touch because we asked a question about international caps recently. He sent an email. I'll let you read this one out, if that's okay, Sarah.
Yes. Just swallow my drink. I thought I should clarify an important point in relation to your Wales quiz from a couple of weeks ago, and also because you asked. It was widely quoted that Rhys Williams had become Wales' most capped player. This was based on Wales Rugby League's own awarding of caps. However, until recently, there has been no rigorous standards for judging international matches, especially in the 1995 to 2012 period, and different countries awarded caps based on their own criteria, resulting in some matches being treated differently by the two teams taking part. Whilst it is of course up to an individual national governing body to award caps and heritage numbers as they see fit, it's also useful to have one global standard classifying matches. This is what the Record Keepers Club and others have worked on with International Rugby League to come up with one list of recognised international matches. Hopefully this standard will become the accepted figures in future, rather than those generated by individual countries, so as to give more credibility to International Rugby League stats. Certainly these figures are to be used in the upcoming Rugby League World Cup, thanks to IRL's partnership with the Record Keepers Club. These figures exclude matches such as Wales' game in the United States in 1995, when both teams fielded 19-man squads, contrary to the international rules at the time. Ian Watson, for example, played in both these games, so whilst he was awarded caps for them, they're not recognised internationals as far as IRL is concerned. Likewise, Jordan James had played in such games, so actually Williams was already out alone as the player with the most full international appearances for Wales, even before the recent France game. So for the avoidance of doubt in future, visit www.rugbyleaguerecords.com for your accurate, comparable international stats.
There you go. That's comprehensive, and exactly what you expect from Neil, isn't it? But
Definitely.
shout out as always for the Rugby League Record Keepers Club, the keeping things up to date.